So today we're on the 157th day of class, and we're learning about Pol Pot, the Khmer Rouge, and the killing fields. And I know you already learned about Pol Pot when we were learning about fascism, and there's a little bit of confusion that I want to clear up. So communism and fascism. Now you can be both. So for example, fascism is a ruler who has total say on how it's going to be. Because of that variable to how it's going to be, there's no reason it can't be communism. So Mao Zedong was communist and he was fascist. Joseph Stalin, communist and fascist. Pol Pot in Cambodia, same kind of thing. So that can be combined. That was a confusion that I was getting. And in terms of teaching about it, I let the videos do the talking for me today, because the Khmer Rouge, it went on from 1975 to 1979, killed 1.5, 1.7, 2 million. We'll go with 1.7 million people, about a quarter of the population. If you were a white-collar person, if you were a teacher like me, if you were an intellectual, if you spoke a foreign language, you were killed. Absolute horror show where Pol Pot changed Cambodia into communism. The bad news is the vast majority of the Khmer Rouge leaders did not get punished, which is, lack of closure. So anyway, what I'm going to ask you to do is click on this clip, watch it, and this is made by an American traveler to Cambodia, and he does a really fantastic job to catch the essence of how bad the killing fields were. And there are video links to answer the questions here, but ultimately you have an assignment sheet. And I will go over that assignment sheet with you. And the assignment sheet, again, comes from these videos that we were watching called Enemies of the People. I did not create this. This was created by PBS. And we start off with the executioners, the people on the ground level that were killing 1.7 million people, and the brutality, babies getting smashed into trees because bullets were valuable. So you would kill people with cheaper ways, cutting the throats with palm branches and whatnot. And these men, they showed their faces, which was a pretty bold move, and you could see genuine repentance on their faces, crying, tears, and they were honest, and they said, we need to tell the truth. So in this clip, what were the risks of these men revealing their roles as executioners? I would argue vengeance. Again, if you kill that many people, somebody wants closure, and killing an executioner might provide closure for people. Also, they might get some sort of court penalty where they get punished in the courts of law, jail, being hanged, but they did it anyway. Granted, they were old men, but they still reveal the truth. Now, what do you think motivated them to kill? And in the class, people said, well, they're brought up in a communist regime without a lot of education. The propaganda got to their head. A lot of people feel it was coercion. Now, there was a lot of coercion in Cambodia, that if you disobeyed the higher-ups, you could get killed yourself. But they still didn't have to do it, and maybe dying righteous compared to living what they did. And then why would they come forward so many years later and explain the role in the genocide? I would think it was a guilty conscience. I would think the value of their story to history. The one man said, you didn't believe it was true, so I want to show you that it's true. So it's hard to say why they did it, but I'm thankful they did, so we have the history of this. And then number 4, do you think the men who did the actual killing should be held accountable for these murders when they were following orders from people higher in the regime? Why or why not? Now, coercion is a defense. How much coercion? Was it heavy coercion? Was it light coercion? Did they have their families threatened? So here's some questions we have to ask. Needless to say, it was an absolute tragedy, and to hear these accounts, these first-hand primary accounts from these executioners, was very, very moving and shocking at the same time. And then in the video, we go to the mid-level commanders. These were the people in the middle. They weren't at the very, very top, but they weren't the ground-level executioners that we just saw. So they used very euphemistic language, find the solution. And Nazi Germany was the final solution. Part of the stages of genocide, this dehumanization, where you give somebody a different name than their actual title, or in denial, you use this euphemistic language. This is all part of this genocide. And was the Khmer Rouge, the killing fields, a genocide? I would argue it absolutely was. Now, who do the people in the video think should be held accountable for the killing? They were laughing through this. They said, hey, if you're going to get us, you better get everybody. So it seemed that the nation was complicit in this, that there was a lot of people. So there was so much evil, so much killing, they said, hey, you better get a lot more people than us, and they might have a point. Then number 3, in the video they say, if we didn't obey our orders, we would have been killed. We felt pity for the victims, but what could we do? We had no choice. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Explain. Now, I think we always have a choice. Again, they may have been killed, but they would have died righteous. They would have died with their dignity intact versus having to live the rest of their lives with the stain of being a killer, of witnessing what you had to see. And this is more of a philosophical question than a historical question, but it was interesting. The majority of the class was more to the side of we always have a choice, which I was happy about. And then we go to one of the top men, one of the top leaders, a man named Nguyen Chia, and how they got this in. Well, it took the guy 10 years to make this documentary and to make the connections and network to make this documentary. Brilliant documentary. So he's interviewing Nguyen Chia, one of Pol Pot's top guys. And he says, why does Nguyen Chia think that killing those perceived to be against the regime was the only way to solve the traitor problem? How do you think his motivation for killing might have differed from that of the executioners at the mid-level commander? He didn't see the blood and guts. He didn't hear the screams. He didn't watch children getting ripped from their mothers. So these politicians that, get us into the war, I think they lack that humanizing perspective of being on the ground floor. And Nguyen Chia had very little humanity, if any humanity, in him during the interview. And I think it's because he was not exposed to those atrocities. And then Nguyen Chia said if he had to choose between the nation and the individual, he would choose the nation. What do you think is more important? Now, Nguyen Chia came from a fascist communist regime where the individual is set aside. I live in the United States of America with a Bill of Rights, and I'm going to make an argument, individual freedom, individual liberty, those things that make it fantastic to be an American, they have to be fought for, because if people want to take those rights away, it doesn't end well. And I'll pose this question to you. Find a regime in history that crushed individual liberty for the sake of the broader good, that was a success. That was positive for the people. Good luck with that. If you find that, here, give me some, we'll have a conversation. It's the individual that matters, especially from where we come from a democratic republic. The democratic republic is popular sovereignty, we the people. It's the opposite of this fascist regime that Nguyen Chia signed up for. And should someone like Nguyen Chia, who ordered the killings but did not personally carry them out, be held accountable for the genocide in Cambodia? And a lot of parallels came between what happened in Cambodia in the 70s with what happened during the Holocaust in the 30s and 40s. The Nuremberg trials were done to punish Nazi offenders. We didn't get them all, but we got a lot of them. And the rest of them, the ones that fled to Argentina, were hunted down. And those who committed the atrocity, many of them paid the punishment. And that provides some degree of closure to the victims. What hurts about Cambodia is that many of these people, like Nguyen Chia is an old man, didn't take his lumps like he should have, did not get punished. And again, with the Nuremberg trials, there was an international outcry to make this happen. In the killing fields with the Khmer Rouge, not so much. So very dark chapter of history, not a pleasant subject to talk about. But again, during the Cold War, this did happen. These communist/fascist regimes in Stalin's USSR, in Mao Zedong's China, in Pol Pot's Cambodia, in Castro's Cuba, and in Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, in Kim Il-sung in North Korea. We see this pattern, an unfortunate pattern, that did happen during the Cold War. The good news, not to reveal the ending, but in the end, when the Cold War ended, most of these regimes did break down for something better. So I guess that's a step in the right direction. So thank you for watching.